Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome on the stage Katarzyna Prusak Go, European Cybersecurity Competence Center, and she is Deputy Chair of the Governing Board. Please welcome, a nice applause, please. Perfect, nicer applause, much better. With a mission to increase global competitiveness of Union's cybersecurity industry, her presentation will focus on latest developments of ECCC and the NAC network, and I hope I spelled that correct.
Yes, perfectly.
Good. The stage is yours.
So first of all, good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I will start with telling that I have two hats, in fact. My main hat is being the head of the digital unit in the Polish Parliament representation in Brussels. And I'm also a cyber attaché, so I've been either negotiating or I'm still negotiating on Polish behalf all the legislation that probably Christiane described you in the morning in her presentation. And I also have the other hat as presented. I'm the Vice Chair of the Governing Board of the European Cybersecurity Competence Center. And I hope that this name already popped up many times. It did in the previous panel of the NCCs. And thank you and congratulations for the organizer to include the topic of the NCCs and cooperation within the center in the merits of the conference. It's very important that we spread knowledge about the center, which still is, I think, not that commonly known. So I would first start with maybe some general information to somehow order the knowledge that you have. Well, it was already mentioned that the center was created by the regulation, and we have this central structure, umbrella structure, with the seat in Bucharest. This is an entity with the legal personality, and if any of you would like to engage in building cybersecurity industry and research, this is the perfect place for you to work. I think they are still looking for the best employees from the EU, so please be welcomed to check the website of the center. And together with the central entity, the center, also each member state is obliged to designate one national coordination center. So we have 27 national coordination centers, which together they form a so-called network. The regulation also states about building the cybersecurity community with all the stakeholders that are active at the national level regarding research, industry, and academia, or any other cybersecurity topics, but I will tell about this later. So about the center itself, well, the center has two sets of taskings, and the first is these are strategic taskings, and the strategic task first of all was to set an agenda about which this is a strategic document, a strategy about which I will tell in details further on, but also to support cooperation between different union institutions. Of course, I guess you already seen this picture, how many different entities we have in the, let's say, European framework. So the first and foremost agency with which the center has to cooperate and already is cooperating, it's ENISA, European Agency for Cybersecurity. There are observers in our governing board and very active in different endeavors that we are now making. But other, which is also stated that we should seek for synergies between civil and military sphere. So also European Defence Agency is the institution with which the center should cooperate. And already there are ongoing negotiations to have a cooperation agreement with EDA. With ENISA, it was already signed. And also the center, of course, foresees the task concerning managing and easing the life of the network and making the network to work. From the most important, I guess, for now, are the implementation tasks, where the center is responsible for the implementation of the Digital Europe program, the cyber part. So you can expect, or there were calls, and there are already calls from the cyber debt part, where different endeavors when it comes to cybersecurity can be financed from European funds. So I also welcome you to visit the website of the Digital Europe program, when you can find all the information about the ongoing calls. And of course, the center also is to present the network, the center itself, and make sure that the framework as established in the regulation works. Shortly about the national coordination centers, but I guess after the presentation that was done in the panel before, unfortunately I couldn't be before you due to my flight schedule, which would probably make more sense. But now, as I already said, there's in each member state, there's one NCC. Some representatives of the NCCs you have met during the previous panel. Well, the NCCs are to serve as the national points of contact, to gather the community, to gather input from the community, and from the, let's say, bottom-up approach, pass this government, the national level input to the center, and then together with our colleagues from member states discuss how this could be aligned and what could be the common vision. And also what is important, as was already mentioned, the NCCs can get support and then pass this support to other entities and organize calls. And I guess in many member states this is already being done, as they have already signed some agreements with the center, and there is a possibility to further on transfer those funds. What was not mentioned here is another instrument that we have in the Digital Europe program. These are European Digital Innovation Hubs, which also were established in some member states, and it was also an open call from the Digital Europe program. And some of those European Digital Innovation Hubs also in their tasks have the support for the entities when it comes to also cybersecurity. So this is crucial that at the national level, if in a member state there is a European Digital Innovation Hub, the National Coordination Center should have close ties and links with such EDIC to make sure that there's no duplication of efforts, that there's full alignment, to make sure that well, we don't spend the money for exactly the same reason, and maybe sometimes also make some not aligned tasks. When it comes to community, hopefully soon all the NCCs will open the calls to accept the members of the community. On the slide you can see the general groups of entities that can apply to become the members of the community. This process will be done through the NCC, so you have to very carefully look at the websites of each of your NCC, and then at the NCC where the entity is established, file an application which will be assessed by the NCC, and then if the assessment is positive, it will be sent to the center for the registration. As I said, this is an ongoing process. In many, it was said before at the previous panel, we are indeed at the beginning of our journey, even though it's already 2 years. But it took time to make sure that all the processes are in place, and as this was new endeavor, unfortunately it had to last so long. And also to mention that to ease the cooperation when it comes to between the NCCs, well, in fact in Poland we started a very good tradition. It was this year in March, to have NCC Day, when we can gather all the NCCs at one place and also enable colleagues to meet in person, hopefully, and exchange best practices, their experiences and ideas how to support the entities at the national level, and also what to do at the European level. Also, the regulation foresees establishment of an advisory group, which will be concrete people chosen from the members of the community, and their role will be to advise the executive director, but also the governing board when it comes to all the strategic decisions. Well, to say a few words about, I think, the most important document that we've been very hard working on, with some colleagues present in the room, also present in the previous panel. This was the strategic agenda, which is foreseen by the regulation to enable member states to define in one strategic document what are our main goals and recommendations when it comes to the development of the European cybersecurity, industrial, technological, and research sector. The agenda was adopted in March this year after a long process of consultations and internal discussions within the work groups with the involvement of all the NCCs. And I would like to draw your attention to the impact statements that are in this strategic agenda, because I don't think this is a commonly known knowledge about the document, about the agenda itself. And also the agenda should give input to the strategic planning of the Digital Europe program, even though it's not binding because of the rules of the Digital Europe program, but still giving thoughts gathered from all the 27 member states, what in fact should be, how in fact the funds from Digital Europe program should be given. So the first impact statement concerns European SMEs and the support for the SMEs through this mechanism of cascade funding, which I mentioned. This cascading funding mechanism is a mechanism when an NCC gets money from the center and then can further on at the national level give the money to the entities applying. And I think it was the Netherlands who did it first, and they the amount was being used in more than one day. There was such a big need, and so many applications were sent that this was very quickly solved. And hopefully we are meeting next week, in fact, on the 11th in Athens. And one of the topic of discussion is indeed to learn the best practices and exchange how we use the cascade funding mechanism to really put in practice our impact statement that we coordinate in this way. And why is the date 2027 here mentioned? Because this is the date of this financial perspective when and the funds of the Digital Europe program are until 2025. And also in the agenda, together with the impact statements, there are some concrete actions, a list of actions that we should consider as priorities, but then you have to also taking into consideration how much it is, how much resources you possess. You have to still find priorities within priorities. So for the first impact statement, well, the actions concern processes and tools for managing cybersecurity information and risk management. And in this action, there are already some calls, which I will talk about later in the realms of the Cyber Solidarity Act, because this is the call for the Security Operational Center platforms, and also the call for SOCs. And we also have actions to support secure and resilient hardware and software systems. Of course, the agenda document is available. It's a publicly available document. We can find it at the ECCC website. The second impact statement concerns, of course, skills and the cybersecurity professional workforce. It goes without saying, and I guess after Christiana's presentation, you see how much we have after now to implement. It was already said, and I fully subscribe to the statement, that this is time to focus on the implementation, and we need people who will be ready, have skills, knowledge to implement this legislation. And for this, we all know how much we are missing. And it's not only I don't know if Cristiano only said about cybersecurity legislation, namely NIS2, which is the main legal act now to implement, CRA in the pipeline, which will be Cyber Resilience Act with the cybersecurity requirements for IoT, which will be a huge game changer for the market, for which for what they have to prepare. The CSA with all the cybersecurity schemes. Thankfully, finally, the EUCC, the scheme for common criteria, was published for consultations, I think, yesterday. So also, if you didn't see it yet, please check it out. But we have other. We have the, of course, CSA, the whole framework with the certification, and ENISA. We have the center itself as the vehicle for cybersecurity financing. But we should also not forget about digital legislation, namely Digital Services Act, Digital Governance Act, Data Act. EIDAS change with the introductions of new trust services, and also European Identity Wallet, which personally think this would be something that really will change the face of the digitalization in EU, and also AI Act. And these all with the Spanish presidency wants to finish all the negotiations, especially on the AI. So we can expect that lately this year, at the end of this year or the beginning of the next year, they will be published and they will come into force. And also another legislation that may be sometimes forgotten is the regulation for EU IBAS, so European institutions, agencies and bodies, that we also adopted, and it will be published, I guess, the end of this year, which states all the requirements for the institutions very similar to those that we have for entities in the NIS too. So also the institutions will need to strengthen their capabilities when it comes to skills. That's why it was quite obvious why to put this impact statement. And the actions on the slide, you can see what are the actions foreseen in the agenda. And this is also development of cybersecurity skills, education and professional training, and also cybersecurity skills framework and competence assessment. And I think the works on the European cybersecurity skills framework, I hope everyone in the room knows what it is. If not, please go to the ENISA website and check it. It's a very important tool to align somehow the skills framework, what we have in cybersecurity. Now ENISA has started the review of the skills framework to adapt to all the changes, and also to prepare the changes that are needed when you see how it is, this goes into implementation. And the third impact statement is, as I already said, we have many actions and many ideas in the agenda. So to now know which should be prioritized and or which we focus on in the different periods, then we need also an action plan. And we are currently together with colleagues, also those colleagues sitting in the room, involved in a work group in the governing board, who is tasked with preparing such an action plan. And hopefully until the beginning of the next year, we will be ready to present. This will be another more operationalized document to feed into the strategic planning of the Digital Europe program. I'm sorry, it stopped working. Okay, so here, these are the actions as foreseen by the for the third impact statement. But minding the time, I would switch to the next draft. Well, I guess you have already heard about Solidarity Act from Christiane, but I have put it in especially on the slide because it has some strong links with the center, because in fact it foresees a lot more taskings for the center, but of course also somehow makes decisions on how the money from the European funding when it comes to cybersecurity should be spent. So we have three elements in the Cyber Solidarity Act. We have pan-European infrastructure of national and cross-border SOCs, and this is already being implemented by the center using the possibility of the calls. There are 3 consortia working on preparing the platforms. We have also cyber emergency mechanism when the center will be responsible to implement the first dot and the last one. So not the EU Cybersecurity Reserve, but strengthening preparedness by testing entities, and also giving financial support for mutual assistance between member states. And the reserve is to be implemented by the Commission together with ENISA. And of course, the still discussion on this act is ongoing, and we've been discussing this within the remits of the Council. One last, we've been talking a lot of skills, and I guess in every single panel that I attend lately or that I hear, everyone is telling that the skills are an issue. And this is a challenge that we really have to approach and find a good solution. So the proposal from the European Commission, how to tackle this issue, was the communication about the Cybersecurity Skills Academy. But also the center and the work group, this time 5, which is dedicated especially on skills, was very much involved in the, let's say, pre-consultations in what in fact will be in the communication and how member states can approach this topic. So it's also a very good example of a good cooperation between the center and also the Commission colleagues. So the communication foresees that Academy, Cybersecurity Skills Academy, this would be a virtual platform, a single entry point for cybersecurity education trainings, offers and funding opportunities. And there are 4 pillars. First, to stimulate the stakeholders to take actions, then better channel and better channeling and visibility of European funds. And there is a strong role for the center. Currently, there's a mapping ongoing with involvement of all NCCs to list all the possible fundings at the national level, but also from the Commission side at the EU level, to see what funding we have, and then when we do the mapping, then we will try to draw some conclusions how to better use them and how to better inform people about the possibilities that there are. Because it happens like this, that for so many years, a lot of projects have been already done. So the first step in our case is also to do the mapping, to make sure that we don't do the things that were already done and we don't duplicate the ideas that there are already been. And also the next pillar is fostering knowledge generation through education and training. And here there's a huge role for the ECSF with the leading role of ENISA in this pillar to make sure that the ECSF is operationalized. And hopefully there was a very good conference 2 weeks ago in Segovia about exactly the cybersecurity, European cybersecurity skills framework, and ENISA has really ambitious plans to operationalize the ECSF and also make sure that they align, because ENISA is of course under Connect, but the whole skills framework, or general skills frameworks, is in DG Employ, so they make sure that there is mapping also, and the mapping with the general skills framework, and that this is seen by the general skills framework. And the last tasking also for ENISA is to define indicators to monitor market evolution and assessing effectiveness for the skills of cybersecurity professionals. And here ENISA will prepare the draft also and will consult with all the NCCs, and on the basis of their input prepare the indicators, and also then when measuring, also the knowledge gathering will come from the NCCs. So first step, Commission wants to use the digital skills and jobs platform, but I guess next Wednesday again, we will be discussing together with the colleagues how indeed make sure that we choose the best instrument to operationalize the Cybersecurity Skills Academy. There's also an ongoing project and so-called EDIC, this time European Digital Innovation Consortium. This is an instrument that was foreseen by the EU in Digital Decade program decision. This is a decision that foresees the indicators to be met by the EU until 2030, and there are some indications also towards skills. And under this umbrella, some member states can create so-called EDIC to somehow operationalize also the works, and there are works ongoing to establish such an EDIC, and the Greek colleagues are in lead of this. And also, I already mentioned in brief terms, and also minding the time, there's a huge role for the NCCs when it comes to the Skills Academy, and personally I find it one of the most important tasks for the network and all the NCCs and the center itself to make sure that we operationalize the Skills Academy. So I already said about the mappings and about EU funds, and also we are learning the best practices when it comes to national cyber campuses. I'm happy to hear from Sweden, Christopher, that you are working on that. We gather experience from our French colleagues, who I think are the most advanced when it comes to establishing such a campus, but also Austrian colleagues, German colleagues. And also, on the basis after the mapping, I already mentioned this, we will provide guidance on actions to be financed for to better address the skills gap, and be engaged in all the works on indicators and defining KPIs. So in a nutshell, that's it. And thank you very much for your attention. I hope you all will remember about ECCCC. And because there are still times when I see slides where all the European legislation and European Cybersecurity Competence Center is not mentioned there. So please remember about the center, as this is very important, still young, but a very important player when it comes to cybersecurity at the EU level. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Yes. Indeed, there is a question. You mentioned academy, and yeah, the Sweden is working with the campus, etc. So we are basically touching the ground where we start teaching something. There was a question in Menti. In what matter and to what extent can actually youth, the students themselves, maybe help or take an action in the ECC? So basically, if you are, let's say, building a curriculum on what to teach, how to teach cybersecurity, what kind of topics are there, etc. So maybe something comes from down up. How are these people need to be taught? Is there a body where they could interact with you?
Yes, they should address their NCC, because indeed the NCC should make it possible for the national stakeholders to exchange all the ideas, and also be a platform for maybe a better understanding between the business part and the academia part. So academia teaches what business needs in say. Okay,
so the best way would be go through the NCC.
Yes, the NCCs are there for you to help you with any challenges where you have when it comes to cybersecurity research industry and academia.
So in that sense, ECC is the structure that, you know, as an umbrella brings it all together and works on the legislation initiatives, etc. But all the communication with all the bodies are done through the NCCs themselves. Okay, yes. So you do not actually somehow, you know, work directly with ECC. Or there are cases when...
Not for now that I recall. I'm looking towards my colleagues, but no, the framework is to go through the NCCs. And just to state one thing, the ECC does not work on legislation. This is the council prerogative. So
okay.
The lawyer in me.
Good one. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.